Hi, I'm Vic, and I'm one of the careers consultants here at the University of Manchester. If you've been invited for interview already, or you're just starting to make some preparations in advance, then our Get Interview Ready series is for you. If you have been invited to interview, then it's likely that you'll have already had to submit a CV or an application form, or even complete some online tests. Recruiters have really high standards, so if you have been invited to interview, you've done really well. So congratulations on being accepted. If you're just starting to think about getting interview ready and you haven't actually made any applications yet, that's okay. It's never too early to start getting ready and practicing. If you've had some interviews but you haven't been successful, that's okay too. Many people find that they don't get the job after the first couple of interviews. It takes practice, and hopefully our series today will give you some further tips and advice. So how do you feel about interviews? Whether you're starting to think about your very first job interview or your 10th, everyone feels differently about them, but the most common feeling is to be a bit nervous. We've all been there, and the aim of this series is to help you to feel more confident when you're preparing for an upcoming interview. What I'd like you to do right now is to write down on a scale of 1 to 10 how you feel about interviews, with 1 being totally terrified and 10 feeling really confident and really looking forward to meeting a new employer. We'll come back to this in part 3 of our videos. Remember though, if you have secured an interview, the employer has seen something they like on your application and they're interested in you. It's not a process designed to trip you up or cause you to fail. They're looking for a reason to say yes. So what's coming up in the next part of the video? We're going to look at the interview process itself, preparation you can do before the interview, and some interview questions. So employers use interviews to probe evidence that you gave on your application, so make sure that you get everything relevant in there, but don't put anything that isn't actually true, because they probably will ask. Gather more information to help them make a decision. They're looking for 2 main things. Firstly, can you provide evidence for the skills that they're seeking? And secondly, are you truly interested in their organisation and motivated to succeed in the role that you've applied for? Employers also use interviews to meet the people that they might be working with. Hopefully that's going to be you, and see if you're a good fit for each other. The interview is as much about you deciding whether it's somewhere that you want to work as it is about the employer deciding whether you've got what they're looking for. So the interview process itself, as we've just seen, it's a 2-way process. Take your time to consider, did you connect with the employer? Who would be your day-to-day line manager? Do you align with the values of the company? Ask for the names of the people who will be on your interview panel or the hiring manager if they've not been given. Take a look at them on LinkedIn, research them. How long have they been at the company? Have they shared anything interesting? Even Google them. Have they written any academic papers, for instance, or an article or blog? Knowing who's interviewing you can be a really smart move. For a higher chance at a successful interview, it's important to understand how hiring managers shortlist and evaluate candidates. So this can be different across different employers. However, to ensure fair and legal recruitment practices are adhered to, employers will assess candidates against the job description, personal specification, and any supporting documents that they've requested. They'll use that information along with your application form or CV, online testing if they've used it, and your interview performance and the uptake of references to decide who's going to be offered an interview. Understanding the interview process will help you to feel more confident and comfortable. For example, each question that you're asked usually has a mark attributed to it. So when you're asked a question, the employer might be grading your answer, say on a 1 to 5 scale, or met, partially met, not met. If you only answer in a really short sentence or don't answer the second part of the 2-part question, for instance, you'll not score as highly as other candidates who did. Only the highest scoring candidates are taken through to the next part of the recruitment process or are in the running for a job offer. So make sure you answer the question being asked. Listen carefully so that you hear the question. If you're not sure, it's okay to ask them to repeat the question, or on conclusion of your answer, ask, did that answer your question or would you like more information? Although don't do that for more than sort of 1 or 2 questions throughout your interview. Make sure that you evidence your skills in your answer. I'll come back to this in a few minutes when we look at the STAR method of answering interview questions. But if you don't give evidence, you'll be graded a lower score compared to those applicants that do. And finally, there's always the final, do you have any questions for us? Or on a recorded video interview, would you like to add anything to help support your application? It's really important that you respond to these questions, and we'll come back to that in a moment. So, before the interview, you need to prepare and anticipate. So now you're equipped with knowing that you need to answer questions in full to ensure that you score maximum marks. It's good practice to anticipate some of the interview questions that you might be asked. There are common opening questions that are often used at interview. They might seem like a kind of getting to know you stage, and they're often used to kind of make you feel more at ease and comfortable. But also the employer is using these questions to seek reassurance that you understand the job, that you've invested time in researching the company, and also to establish what your motivation is for applying. You need to persuade the employer you're committed to the job and only this job. Even if you've got 3 interviews lined up elsewhere, they don't need to know that. Here are our most common interview starter questions. In answering these, think about what attracted you to that particular company. What did you like about the job? And always, always add in what you can bring to their company. Make sure that your answers are tailored back to the job or the company. There can be no copy and paste answers here. Many larger employers use what's called value-based recruitment. And there's an expectation that you link your ambition to work for the company into their company values and goals, which they'll publish on their website, sometimes actually on the recruitment pages. Google who uses value-based recruitment for further information and check employers' websites. So now that you've had some starter questions, how can you anticipate other questions that might come up? There's no guarantee that you can, but it's a good practice to reread the job description and the person specification. Write down all the essential criteria. It's likely that questions will be asked around these. So here is an essential skills list from a student partner intern job at the University of Manchester. What I've done here is I've highlighted in yellow the kind of sentences that are giving clues as to what skills and experience are going to be most important to success in this role. And that gives you an indication of where the interview questions might focus. So here, committed to improving the student experience, the importance of employability, face-to-face conversations, written and spoken communication, excellent customer service, being proactive, using digital formats, and a range of opportunities that students can take advantage of. So those are all clearly areas that are important in this role. So in a moment, I want you to pause this recording and write down questions that you think you might get asked at an interview for this job. Think about the way interview questions are asked and also what the recruiting manager might be trying to find out by asking these questions. Okay, so go ahead and pause. And when you've written 3 or 4, click play and we'll see if our questions match. So hopefully you got on okay with that. These are some questions that we think that an employer would be likely to ask. So did any of them match yours? Don't worry if not, all employers are different, but hopefully this shows you how essential skills on job adverts link to potential interview questions, because we would expect them to be asking about why you think employability is important at university so that you can demonstrate your understanding of that. They said that both written and verbal communication are both important. So this is a kind of question where you would probably want to show that you are quite experienced and adept at both. What do you do when someone comes to you with a problem? They're wanting to see there your kind of proactive approach to problem solving, and customer service questions and telling me about a time. Those are competency-based questions that a lot of employers use as well. We'll be looking at the best way to answer these in our part 2 and part 3 videos. Another way that you can conduct research into your upcoming interview is to find examples of interview questions from people that have applied to a particular company before. There's a good website for this, and it's called glassdoor.co.uk. Have a little look at that and put in some companies that you're interested in working in. So it's time for you to take a break. We'll be back in part 2 and then part 3 to explore different types of interview and different types of interview questions. You can get all the tips and information that you need by following the University of Manchester Career Service on our social media channels. So please do that to keep up to date with all of the help and advice that we are offering, and also for links to vacancies that come up. There's a QR code that will take you to the Career Service website, where there's plenty of information for you to follow up, and I will see you in part 2.